Seriously, this single platform has revolutionized the way that we think about music lessons.
And we realize it's really simple, just like students that practice stay music students longer, right?
Imagine your average student went from doing lessons for like, I don't know, 11 months to an incredible 23 months. And in that whole process, you made an additional $3.4 million in revenue, all while doing it. I know it sounds impossible. Well, it is not. Hey, I am Nick, and today I get the privilege of sitting down with Robert, Practice Space, to just really deep dive into the game-changing strategies behind where he, quite honestly, cracked the code on keeping students engaged, keeping them excited, and just coming back week after week for more. And he did it by making it all appealing for both students and parents. And so this tool that he's going to show you is a powerful reward system with gamification and weekly progress updates for parents. And seriously, this single platform has revolutionized the way that we think about music lessons. So in the next few minutes, you are going to discover exactly how one simple yet innovative tool can skyrocket your retention, boost that engagement, and ultimately really just drive massive revenue for your school. So let's just jump straight into it. Robert, can you tell us a little bit more about Practice Space and really why you created it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that powerful introduction, Nick. So we started Practice Space back in 2019. We kind of like were looking at our retention numbers and, all the numbers that revolve around that, like the amount you have to spend on advertising to replace those people, etc. And, we realized it's really simple, just like students that practice stay music students longer, right? So we
Yeah.
kind of created a ton of like little in-house rewards like that were really paper-based at first. And as we started to see those kind of work, we started to build out like a simple app for students to use at our school. And then, we all know what happened in 2020, and it kind of spun out into a business for, teachers to use all over the world today. Music schools and teachers are using Practice Space to get their, students good content to practice with. And then it all comes with these fun kind of attributes like the gamification and things that, you spoke of before.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know like at our school, we talk about how if our music school is a bucket, really the retention side of things is like having a bucket, but somebody drilled a bunch of holes in it. And it's like then we spend all this money in advertising and marketing. And what happens is, it's like the fuel just leaks all
Yeah.
out, and we're
Yeah.
just like essentially churning and burning these students over and over again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Be a bucket, not a strainer. That's for
Yes,
sure.
exact. That's a great
Yeah.
way to put it. So,
Yeah.
okay, so talk to me. You had mentioned before that we've solved sort of both sides of this problem, like with the student and the teacher side of it. So, could you even just like screen share with us and show like some of the amazing like gamification and tools and stuff you're
Yeah.
using in Practice Space?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about, the student kind of side of things first, like you mentioned. I think that there's a ton of robust features in here that people should definitely check out. But, at a high level, like the things, that really engage students, obviously students, when they run a practice, they get a clear agenda of what they're supposed to be working on. Teachers can send their students like digital assignments. So instead of writing down work on this, you can put it in the app, you can record videos, you can add all that kind of, you add a PDF, and then you can reuse those with other students. That's a really important thing, I think, for teachers to realize. But the fun part of it for the students is not just seeing the clear agenda of what to practice, but we have things like streak awards where if they practice every day for a certain amount of time, they get pop-up badges, number of practices, number of lessons they take, how many practice videos they record. People can jump in here and check it out. And there's clear visibility on the student side of the platform, of like their stats, like how much they practice for how long. Every studio gets its own practice leaderboard, which, we've done a good job, I think, of like keeping it fair amongst the levels and ages the studio accommodates. They can see recent awards that they've earned, like they can see all students, and then they have a tab of like these are the badges that they get, and these kind of milestones come with certain awards in the app as well. And teachers can also like insert like their own custom rewards that students can earn by practicing or completing challenges, which is a newer feature for us, but it's extremely popular, where you can basically challenge your students to different things, and you can challenge groups and they can see the challenges they're in. Kind of creates community. And those challenges, like you can have a practice challenge, like practice this many days or practice this many days in a row, like a streak, or record this many practice videos. We started that feature as just a way for students to kind of self-reflect, but a bunch of fun things have spun out from that. Or a custom challenge, like everybody does their own thing. Like if you have custom levels that you want, like complete this method book, you can set it up and then you can add custom rewards to those challenges, right? So like the ones in here, when a student completes like a 30-day streak, what's going to happen is my admin's going to get a notification that this kid completed this streak. They need to get this medal. That's all set up. You have clear visibility into like a student's progress on these challenges. And then you can also see like, no one, I made this for this demo, right? But like if someone completes this, we'll see that in the feed, the activity feed of the challenge. So lots of fun stuff with that in there, for students that kind of just keep them engaged and kind of keep them kind of have a goal, right, to meet is key, right? And it's been really successful for studios using practice space. Yeah.
That's so cool. And I know that like I think about my kids, and I think about like the video games and all that sort of stuff they play. And you've basically taken what all of these like huge video game production companies and whatnot have done and
Yeah.
basically said like, "Oh, I see all these kids badge chasing, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I get this badge and this badge and this badge and this badge." And it's like that's what's driving kids so much
Yeah.
nowadays. But you took that and then turn it into a game for music schools.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's so, and that's the other thing that's important for, teachers and everybody. Like this is the world that these kids live in, right? Like we want them to practice well. Like it's not supposed to be like a distraction. And like that's where, like when they're in an actual practice session, right? It's like they get like clear like what to work on. They can record practice videos. If the studio wants the chat feature on, they can ask the teacher questions. They get attachments. Like it's supposed to be like a utility to aid in their practice. But all of the things before and after are like external goals that are super important to these kids. And it gives them a lot of pride, in like, these kids talk. I hear them in the studio like, oh, what streak are you on? Like, and it creates community, and they love that stuff, and of
Yeah,
course you're going to have some students don't need it, right? They don't need it, but you're not trying to solve a problem for those students, right? So
totally.
yeah, I mean it's true, it's everywhere, the streak thing and the badge chasing. I love that. I love that
Yeah.
thing. So
Well, I mean, like it's so clear that like this sort of thing, it's like obvious that this would massively increase retention because this is what kids want nowadays. One of the things I saw though too was your level system, which I think that was like such a cool feature that you have because I know as like it being in BAM squad and whatnot is I've had so many conversations with schools who are like, oh, what I wish we had was a way for us to be able to like do a skills tree or like tracking, sort of the levels and stuff like that in there. So can you show us quick sort of what that looks
yeah,
like?
so the
So yeah,
levels, so the levels right now is not, it's we do have like we have like in a development cycle like the idea of like being able to customize these. Right now, like if you want to do like a skill tree or something like that, I would suggest doing a custom challenge for something like that. Our levels are going to be more around like practice points. So
yeah,
right now, like if you run up, if when the teacher creates a lesson for a student, right, it's like, this is what I want you to practice this week. Your practice goal is 10 minutes. If the student practices 10 minutes, they get 100 practice points because they did 100% of their goal, right? So like as a student kind of goes through like completes a bunch of practices, like I actually for my student, I'm gonna have to add another one on because I've got some legends going on. But like, like, so that's how that works. I do love the idea of like being able to customize this more and like either like attach it to other, things that we track in our data or just allowing teachers to like like they just have to log in and say this person completed it, move them to the next thing. So I
Yeah,
like the idea, and that's kind of why you see that in challenges. That's why we had the custom thing. Um,
totally.
yeah, so
So, okay, so then now one last quick question around the doing like this on the focusing this on the kid side of things is like, all right, so I become a legend and I have all these points. Like, what do the can I redeem the points for something or like
yeah,
what does
yeah.
that all look like?
Great question. Yeah, great question. So the points are part of the leaderboard or the levels, right? So every studio gets its own leaderboard and that resets every week. So if you get new students, they've got a shot at it, right? Now, but the gems that they earn from like either completing streaks or like earning badges, they'll get practice gems. And then, they can do a few different things with those. They can change around their avatars, like we change these out monthly. Sometimes we get some interesting composers in there like Moondog.
Oh, come on.
They can change around their background. So, I can get a little Moondog going and I don't think I selected that, but I can in my inventory, I can select Moondog.
Yeah.
And then, in the shop, you can get different backgrounds, you can get streak freezers, and then, the studio can also add their own things. So, like, one thing that is popular at our studio, this isn't my actual studio account, right? But like, we can do like, we do prize basket pickup. So, like, I've got staff at my front desk all the time. They got a prize basket there. When someone redeems an award like this, they'll get a notification. We get an email. We're big on trust. Like if a kid says I pick it up, we'll check it. Some of my staff check it, some don't. It's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not trying to be over, right? Like so they can like earn awards, but like we've seen all sorts of things from like candy in here to like I'll make you an arrangement of your favorite piece, t-shirts, like all sorts of different stuff. And then, the other thing that I want to add on that note is that also some of these streaks actually come with certificates. So which you would get an email for. So like if a student does a 1 month streak, the admin would get an email like, hey, this student did a 1 month streak, give them their certificate. We have those pre-made for you if you want. That your staff can download it and use it. Or,
Yep.
of course, like bigger studios like to make their own custom ones. And, I will say for bigger studios that have like, 20 teachers or more, we do work with them a little bit to customize this to their needs a bit. So, yeah.
That's amazing what you have created. And again, it's like so
Thank you.
evident why, that retention just skyrocketed for you guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, so within retention, obviously like a huge element with student retention is keeping the kid engaged, like having them want to come to lessons each and every week. But on the flip side, like the kids most of the time, 99% of the times are not the one paying. And
Right.
so like for the parent side of things, we also need to be able to communicate value and progress and all that sort of stuff for the parents. So can you walk me through like how you've obviously tackled the student retention side. Can you show me how you've then tackled the parent retention side and keeping them informed?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Like one thing that we kind of think about is like engagement is so broad. Like what are the things that go into that, right? And like one of them is communication for sure, right? So like when a teacher, selects a student that they're going to work with or with like or a group, if they teach group, it works the same. They click new lesson. You can copy the last lesson. Most people just copy over the last lesson because if you teach music, you work on similar material from week to week and it kind of changes over time. But like basically, we have this feature in here where the big one for parents is that you can also email like the lesson plan to them. So like if I go and I publish this lesson, the parent would also get an email like here's the student's name's lesson notes from their instructor, and then they'll see, they'll see some notes, they'll see the assignments. And the cool thing is also like they can access like attachments and things like that directly from the email. They don't even have to be logged in, right? Because at the end of the day, there will be students, and I know this from my school, is that like there'll be students that they don't use the app all the time to practice. So that, but they still want the breakdown of what they need to practice. They still want the PDFs and everything shared with them. So like that's a big kind of like, feature for that kind of need. And then, teachers, if they did practice, they can edit practices and stuff like that. I don't want to dive too deep into that. I want to stay on the parent. But so that's one thing. The parents also can see from the student side of the app, like all the lessons that they've ever had, like there's no end to it. You can see all the practices that the students ever done. If they want to message the teacher through there, they could if you have that on. But I would say next to like just getting the email or even in front of it, I would say is the biggest thing for retention with parents that teachers and studios are using practice space for is going to be makeup lessons, big time, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, I've seen this in many, many different ways handled, but like the basic idea is that, if you know in advance a student's going to be out, no problem. Just have, so and so send us a bunch of practice videos on practice space, and then your teacher's going to take their lesson time and sit down and make some asynchronous lessons based on those, videos. And then if it's, a lot of times these are out of the blue, it's like, no problem. Like the teacher's going to take time to make sure that they record some extra content for the student in practice space. So, they can go in and we have a lot of people that call it like, missed lessons. So like you can create like, missed lesson assignment, and you can add stuff. And then the thing is that's cool is that like as studios use this, I mean, you can just have these as templates in your library. So you don't really have to like, if your piano teachers have a shared library, they can go in there and grab missed lesson assignments like, hey, let's work on scales, or like let's work on this fun arrangement that we have in our library, or whatever. And then you publish that and they have those standout assignments from their normal kind of workflow. And then when you go into the next week, you can remove those if you want. So, yeah. And then the parent will see that in the email, missed lesson assignments, right? So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, man.
So so
Yeah.
we've actually struck three things because now we've done the student retention side of things, we have the
Yeah.
parent retention side of things, and you've solved the like number one problem that music schools experience, I feel like, which is how do you handle makeups?
The biggest problem we all have to deal with is it's you can't scale time. So it's like, like we do it like in conjunction. Like this is one solution for my school. This is one solution that people can have. Some
Yeah,
they just don't do them at all, and that's how they handle it. And I think that, you're not going to totally solve the problem. You have to have solutions, right? People are still going to come at you about it. You just need to have value propositions for them. And this can be one of those. So,
absolutely.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and when you were talking about the communication side of stuff too, a couple years ago, we do a yearly survey with our parents, and I remember one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we got was they wanted to be more informed on what was happening in their child's lessons. Even though at the end
ah,
of every single lesson we were talking to the parents, they wanted that information. And so essentially what we've done is we've gone, well, now that problem is solved. And knowing that that was like for a parent survey side of things at our school, like that was so crucial to them, like
yeah.
that it again, it totally makes sense that why your retention just like boom skyrocketed because of that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also like a lot of this stuff too, as anytime a teacher, especially if they're in a shared library, like they don't have to share it to the library, right? but how many piano teachers use Faber Piano Adventures, right?
Oh yeah.
Like the teaching points for that is like, the students have the music, the teacher has the music, but the teaching points of that is always very clear, right? So like what I'm saying is that when you start to send these things, even for missed lessons or what, you can just select these assignments from the library and you don't have to rewrite it down again and again. So I think that there's also the other value proposition that, is there is to the teachers themselves, because it saves them time, like with there's upfront costs and time costs and that you have to get stuff in the library, but eventually, you're just like, you know, good teachers use like methods again and again, right? You're not reinventing the wheel every time. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So, and yeah, any other questions about any of this or thoughts? Yeah.
More or less a statement is like, Robert, what you have created is unbelievable. And like, I mean, I like so many schools need to be incorporating this into their sort of day to day, systems. And it ultimately needs to be an app that they bring into their school on top of, whatever their, customer relationship management system is. Like
Totally.
this is
Yeah.
such a huge and useful tool for them. So I guess the next steps, like,
Yeah.
how does somebody get signed
Yeah,
up? Like, what
yeah,
do we
just
do next?
go to practicespaceapp.com.
Okay.
You can create a free 30-day trial. You can invite as many teachers during that trial. You can invite as many students during that trial. And then, if you decide you want to continue, you can just manage your subscription here. And, it's like for your base account, it's $15.99 a month. And then each teacher on top of that is $6.95 a month. And then you max out at $85 a month. It's just completely unlimited. So, for the amount of money saved, like in retention costs, it's like most people are paying probably around like $80 to $100 to get a student, depending on the area you live in when you're running AdWords and not whatnot. So like just saving those people with that cost is a no-brainer. So
Oh, yeah. Well, again, if we go back to the very beginning of this whole thing where you were like, well, you went from like the average student being 11 months to 23 months, which then ultimately generated like $3.4 million extra in revenue. I
yeah,
will spend $85
yeah,
all day every month if it's going to mean that I'm going to make an extra $3.4 million over the course of
I,
that time. Like,
I think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, amazing. Well, Robert, this has been so informative and valuable for me. Thank you for taking the time to share this. Again, it's practicespaceapp.com, claiming that 30-day free trial. And yeah, I encourage every single person who watches this video to jump in, grab this, at least get into that 30-day free trial and make sure that like, yeah, you're going to see the value, I think, virtually instantly in your school and with your teachers and whatnot. So jump in. Robert, again, thank you a million times over for your time and showing us this and creating it.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks so much, Nick.